Hi, my name is Rod. Welcome to Rodan 3D channel. This is my first attempt to doing an English video, so sorry for the accent. I'm a French guy, but since I see a lot of English people struggling with Fusion 360, I decided to make a little tutorial just as a test. So I saw in the group, on a Facebook group, a Brian that was actually a beginner, but he did an amazing job at trying to design some RC parts, and he had a little trouble with a filter, which I guess is a carburetor filter, and he wanted to do something like this. So try to figure out a way to design the paper just to make his design more complete in the Fusion 360. So basically I'm going to show you how to do this, and we're going to start all that part from scratch, just to show you different methods to create a part like this, and using good options to make sure your parts is you can modify the parts without generating errors. So let's start from scratch over here. So I'm gonna go totally new design. So a good practice is always to create a new component. Why you create a component and you don't work only with bodies is bodies are really limited. So with component you can assemble, you can join, you can do a lot of stuff, export them, reuse them in other project. As a body, you're stuck with just a physical shape, I mean a body, and you can't really do much with them. So the body is basically the core of a component. So every time you design something, first thing you should do is just create a component right away and start to design on that component, and consider the main component as your project basically. So I'm designing the first component here, which is going to be the full filter. I could make two components, like the center of the filter and then the paper coil thing wrap around the filter could be another component. It's up to you. So I'm going to do everything in the same component. So we're going to start with a sketch, very simple sketch. So the shape of the filter is a slot. So we have a slot shape here right away. So we can use that. We're going to go, not bother too much with measurements, but basically what I did here starts with the origin. So every time you start with the origin, you have an anchor somewhere. So if I put dimension, I'm going to be able to lock the sketch. So locking the sketch means is you cannot move anything. So if I play with vectors here, they're going to move in space. If you go in the sketch over here, you're going to see the sketch here. I have just the icon of the sketch. But if I start to put measurements, so I'm going to put the measurement for the, whoops, I had something here. So D for measurements, and I'm gonna put a measure for the center. Let's put 40 here, okay, and then I'm gonna put another measurements. I can use the radius, so just a distance between these two. I guess the distance between this and this would be more logical in our design. So let's put 40 this. As you can see, everything turned black. That means if I try to move something here, I can't. And you're going to see in the sketch, you see the little lock icon there. That means your sketch is fully constrained. That means you cannot move anything. If you want to modify it, you have to go in a value and change it. So I'm stop there for now. Choose that thing. We're going to do a little extrude there. And we're going to go 30, maybe 40. 40 like this. Okay, so now I have my basic shape. I'm gonna show you something very interesting there to make the two caps. So if I look over here, I have two caps with a rounded edge here. So what I will do is I start with this plan and simply start a sketch on this plan, and we'll do an offset. So go here, offset, choose the surrounding, and we'll do an offset about, let's say 4 millimeters like this. Okay, now I can finish that sketch. Choose the center, choose the rim, make sure you choose the rim with that. do an extrude, and we'll do about 5 mil of this, and there you go. You have the edge over there. Now the thing is, I want to do a fillet. A lot of people would go, we just did an extrude of, I can remember, just double click here, that was 5. Okay, so alpha 5 is 2.5, and I could go and make a fillet and do a fillet, sorry, anyway, do a fillet there and say 2.5, and then had another one under. But there's a new feature in the fillet. It's called a full round fillet here, and then I can choose the face there, and it's just gonna, sorry, select the face, yes, and it's just gonna deal with it, and magically you get a full round fillet. So basically you don't have to enter any measurements. It's gonna figure out the length of this thing and just do a perfect round fillet there. So that's it for the top here. Okay, now I want to do the same thing over there. So instead of just redoing the same thing, I have all the information here and just want to reproduce it on the other side. So how do I do that? I can use the function mirror. But mirror from where? Because if we look at the origin, our plans here is at the bottom. So how do I say create a mirror perfectly on the opposite side? So the trick here is to create a new plan that's going to serve as a mirror plan. And the plan is going to be between the two faces of the basic extrusion there. So now what I can do is I can use the history and go back in the history over here in the timeline, and go back just before we did that top part, and go in the construction plane, and I'm gonna do a mid plane. It's very easy. A plane between two faces, so this face and this face, and then you get a plane perfectly in the center created. Enter. The big advantage of doing this way is if I change the extrude, so right now we have an extrude of 40, if I decide it's going to be 60, the plane is always going to be in the center, because the reference of this plane is between the two faces. So whatever the amount of extrude you put, the plane is always going to be in the center, which means when I'm going to go in the timeline, add this part, and I'm gonna say this part is got to be mirror on the other side. So every modification is gonna follow. You know, we won't have the cap hanging in midair because you change the extrude. So that's the good way to do it, basically. One way to do it, because there's so many ways to do stuff in Fusion 360. So now what I'm gonna do is the mirror of this feature there. I'm saying feature because we're gonna use the feature part to make a mirror. So how do we do that? We're gonna go and create. I don't have to do a sketch or anything. We're just gonna go and mirror here, okay? And I'm gonna choose feature. I can mirror a body, a face, and all that stuff. We're gonna choose the feature, okay? And I'm gonna use the extrude, which is just the size of the extrude, and hold shift and choose also the full round fillet. So now I can see that my full feature, so the top part, is selected, and I'm gonna say mirror that from this plane, and then the part just get created like that magically. Hey, it's good. Okay, now let's attack the paper around the filter there. I'm gonna just hide the construction plane here. So all the construction plane and the axis plane will appear in a subfolder here. It's called construction, so we can see our plane here. So I can hide and you know, and view those construction things. So it's going to create a folder right away when you construct and you create new planes. Sorry. Now for the paper part. Now the thing is, the paper part, we're gonna build it around this edge here. Maybe the edge is not that big. We're gonna make it bigger. So basically, to make it bigger, I'm gonna either lower the profile here or just make it larger. So I can go back in history, just go in the sketch over here and edit sketch, and I can change this thing here, the offset. Instead of 4, I can put 5. Double click, 5, finish sketch, and like I said, because we use the mirror, because we're referencing always from the original part, the modification is done on both sides here. Okay. Now, a little fun thing also is you can actually show the sketch. So you can see the sketch. And if you do right click and say show dimension, then I don't have to go in the sketch anymore. I can just change the value over here. So I double click on it. I'm going to put 6 millimeters, which is a little more convenient for us to do our paper wrap around there. Okay, so this is done. I can hide this. And now we're going to go on this face and create a little sketch. So basically it's a triangle we're going to do and extrude that triangle to make the first one to wrap around the whole body. Okay, so we're going to go sketch here on this plane, and right away I'm going to go in 3D mode instead of, so I mean, just to make sure that the sketch is on really that plane. I'm not sketching on the other plane here. Okay, and we're just going to use lines here. So I go with a line, and I'm going to anchor myself in the corner here. Just snap it to the line on the top. Just make sure I have a constraint to that path like this, and I'm going to create another line from here to here. Now the thing is, I have to be able to control this thing. So how I'm going to do that, I have to find a way to constrain that triangle to make sure it's symmetrical and I have control on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna make the other line at the bottom, because I have to close the profile, so it's am I able to select it, and I'm gonna add another line. So line, but now I'm gonna put construction type line. I'm gonna take the top there, okay, and bring it to the bottom, and just make sure I hit I see that little triangle. So basically I'm doing a constraint to the center of the bottom line. Okay, so now what I have a constraint from this line and this line. Okay, so now this is all stuck together. If I make the bottom larger, it's always going to stay in the center. Then the only last thing I have left to do to make sure that triangle is always like very symmetrical and sitting on the bottom is take this line and make a constraint of horizontal or vertical. This way it's going to be vertical. So now this line has to stay vertical. So if I bouge, there's some French coming back here. If I move that point here, as you can see, the triangles always stay very stable like this. Now I have some blue lines because it's not fully defined. The only thing I have to define here is the size of the bottom, since everything else is locked. So if I go dimension and take the bottom here, and let's say 2, there you go. So now it's all black. My sketch is fully constrained and I have my triangle. Okay, we're gonna go out from this sketch, and now what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna choose that triangle and do an extrude, the E key, and make sure I make a new body. The only reason I'm doing that is just to make sure I can put the different texture on that body. If I do join, then it's gonna be one full body, and I cannot change the texture unless I will have to choose faces one by one, which is a real pain. So I do a new body. I could do new component. Also, like I said, it's going to create a new component. You have to be very careful to do that, because if you do new component and then it's this component that's active right now, the component you're creating is going to be under this one and not at the first level of the project. So let's do it. I do component, but now I have to choose the actual project. So that component's going to appear at the same level as the first one. And now, instead of just doing a measurement, again, take the habit to always reference your extrude and something like that. So this part always has to be, you know, up to this face. So what I'm gonna do, the extend part, I'm gonna do to object and then choose that object. So let's make sure that extrude there, whatever modification I do in terms of the size of that filter, that extrude always going to follow the same size because it's going to be reference to that face there. Okay, so this is not our thing. So now I have another component. As you can see here, the component was created under there, and it just became translucent, okay, because this is the component that is active right now. So if I make active the full project, both components are visible. Now I'm going to choose this one and type A to choose a texture. I'm just going to put it white there. Very basic white granite, let's say filter, granite filter. Funny here. So now I have different textures just to make sure I can identify this thing. Now the tricky part is like I have to repeat this thing all around, and have to figure out the amount of them I have to put around, and just make sure I have all the component there. So first thing I'm going to do is activate that component, because I'm going to modify this component just to make sure. So now the rest is just showing me I'm modifying this thing and not the whole design. So the other one gets transferred. So that's a preference thing. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a path. And so it's a pattern along a path, basically. But before that, we have to figure out how many of them we need. So what we're going to do here is use the inspect function. So high for inspect. I'm going to choose this line here. So now I know it's 40 millimeters. Okay. I can choose the second one here. I'm going to choose the arc over there, and the arc is 62.82. So what I'm going to do right now, so to make the full pad around, get a calculator. Full pad around is basically the 40 millimeters, okay, plus the 62.832, okay, so 62.8, I said 8, yeah, 832, okay, and I have twice that, so I have another line down there, another arc, so we're gonna go times 2, and we have 205.6, something like that. So it's hard to divide, but basically it's around, you know, 206. And if I go divided by what was the bottom of our triangle, it was 2 millimeters by 2, I say I'm gonna have 102, 103 edge there. Okay, it's approximate. It's not perfect. It can't be perfect because, you know, we'll have to figure out the size there to make a perfect round number for the full path, which is, we don't need that anyway. So I said 102 or 103. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to create a pattern on a path. Now the object is not a feature, now is a component. Okay, so I'm going to choose that component there. That's the thing I want to repeat. And then the path is this path here. Okay, and now what I do is I have three, I don't know exactly, so three things we have to do to make sure here. First, we're going to use the distance and not extend. So distance, the spacing, sorry, between every triangle. We know our base is 2 millimeters, so the spacing is going to be 2 mil. So right away I get all triangles stacked together. And because we calculated the full pad there, that was 200 something, I know I'm going to use about 102 or 103. So 102 is a missing one, so 103, it's going to be better. But now all my triangles are sitting in the same direction. So this is the little orientation thing there. I'm going to go direction path, and there you go. All your triangles are facing outside, and we just created our filter. And I say okay, and there you go. If I want to go now, it's created a component for every single one of them. We could have done it in body and just then combine all the body. That was a kind of a mistake because now I have like tons of component. Let's redo that. Let's go back there. We're gonna redo that function. So along the path like this, use this. I'm gonna say body. Okay, so basically it's the body inside that component. So now when I'm gonna do the pattern, all the body is gonna appear under that component, which is gonna be much easier to control. Select the path here like this. So we said spacing 2 mil, and we have 103 of those, and make sure it's the path direction. There we go. Say OK. Now a bunch of bodies, so if I just close the folder of bodies there on that component, it's much cleaner project. And now if I want to see everything, I have to activate the full project, and now I have my filter. There you go. I can have fun and do a little render there like this, and bang, here's my filter with the paper wrapping around. And I don't have like thousands of components and stuff like that, and it was done. And the big advantage of the way I did it, it seems very complicated maybe for some people who started using Fusion, but the big advantage of following that way to do it is if I decide to modify this thing. So let's do just a show dimension here. So basically we see our dimension here. So if I decide to modify this and say, oh, it's going to be 30 here, I'm going to do that, and it's going to follow. Everything is going to follow in terms of wrap paper. But now probably I have too much bodies around since the amount just changed. So that I can adjust. But as you can see, we can't really see the problem here. And we don't have any errors, so that's a good thing. So this is it. So that was my first take at a English tutorial. I hope my accent didn't bother you too much. And please put comments if you liked it, if you'd like me to do some more English video. I know there's a ton of them out there. Have a certain style. Maybe some people, English people, prefer my style. Anyway, just put a comment and tell me if you liked that video from me. So see you next time.